You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your website, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
The following message contains a special offer for listeners of this station. Are you a man over 40? Are you constantly looking for the nearest bathroom? Do you wake up multiple times a night to use the bathroom? Right now, Perfect Prostate is sending out free bottles of their groundbreaking new formula to listeners of this station. Perfect Prostate Formula was developed by medical doctor Mitchell Fleischer, and its ingredients have been clinically studied to reduce your frequent nighttime bathroom visits and promote healthy urine flow. Right now, preferred customers get their first bottle of Perfect Prostate absolutely free. There's nothing to lose. Perfect Prostate is guaranteed to reduce that constant urge to use the bathroom, especially at night, and promote healthy urine flow. Don't wait. Call now for your free bottle. Just pay shipping and processing. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251. Supplies are limited. One free bottle per household. Call now. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251.
Hey folks, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine, Dr. Richard Harden. We are on the same mission, which is waking up America. We just have different paths. So stay tuned for some information on how you can keep up with Richard and all his work.
Visit Richard's website at raharden.com. That's the World Wide Web at RAHARDIN.com. At his website, you can see a summary of the 6 books he has written, where purchases may be made. He also has a link to 18 videos on YouTube and several blogs about Christian beliefs. If you prefer, visit Amazon.com/Kindle and type in Richard Harden to see and purchase his books.
Every day, the men and women of the United States Marine Corps stand ready to defend the American way of life. The few, the proud, the Marines.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it. There to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome, fellow patriots, and welcome once again to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you live from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360. That's our flagship station in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM, FM, 24/7. We are everywhere. We are everywhere. And joining me today as my co-host is the Patriot from the Hoosier State, my very good friend, J.D. Minier. J.D., welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Oh, it's great to be back on the radio with you again. Another Wednesday, Rick.
Dittos, J.D. And, you know, J.D., I don't remember a period of time like this in my life that every day is a hot news day. Just the other day, what was it, yesterday, the day before yesterday, we had another terrorist attack, this time using an automobile and a butcher's knife. A Somali refugee who was welcomed into this country with open arms, took it upon himself to run over and attack with a butcher knife 11 people. Now, I said it, run over with a vehicle and attack with a butcher knife 11 people. And then you got people like Senator Tim Kaine, former Democrat vice presidential candidate, he wants to blame it on gun violence. The only part, J.D., that a gun played in this, a gun in the hands of a police officer shot and killed this perpetrator to stop him from harming anyone else. That's the only gun that took part in this attack Senator, Mr. Vice Presidential wannabe. JD, the left is so deluded. They're so sick. I'll say sick.
Oh, yes, indeed. And, I watched that whole thing take place on Fox News in my home for over an hour that morning. And what was very interesting is it actually, he was subdued. I will look at the tweets from the true hero was the officer who took him down.
Yes.
And like at 9:52, he starts with his car and he starts injuring people. He gets out of the vehicle and he starts trying to cut people up. But by 9:53 or 54, the officer is there and with 3 bullets takes him down, and it's over. And the hospital ambulances and everything show up and take the wounded in. But it went on for a couple hours, and they kept saying active shooter. And then they interviewed this 19, 20-year-old girl who was in Watts Hall at Ohio State University. Remember, the guy had done this outside the hall, but she was inside the bathroom with a friend on her cell phone talking to the local ABC affiliate. And it's just, they continued on with this story about active shooter. And so Tim Kaine puts out this message, decrying against gun violence. And it's just amazing. And here today, WorldNet Daily posted a great article I wanted to talk a little bit about. 8 bloody terror attacks in the United States in the last 18 months have one thing in common. The one common denominator of all 9, not talking about 9 attacks, but they're actually throwing in the Boston Marathon killing that injured 300 people, left 3 dead, but they were all carried out by Muslim immigrants or sons of Muslim immigrants. And we need to go back through here. The Chattanooga shooting, Muhammad Abdulaziz, remember that one?
Yes.
Leaving 5 U.S. servicemen dead in July 2015. There at the University of California, the knife attack, an 18-year-old student named Fazl Muhammad, Flash's teacher, and 4 were wounded back in November 2015. San Bernardino, that was very famous. I think everybody remembers that horrible event. And it was the Muslim couple. Orlando gay nightclub shooting, the worst mass shooting in the history of our country in any modern times. Then there was the restaurant knife attack in Columbus, Ohio again. That was just this year, in February. 4 were wounded. And so you go back, and I'm getting rid of look at the next couple of these. St. Cloud Crossroads Mall, okay, Dahir Ahmad Adan. He seeks out non-Muslim shoppers with a military-style knife. He wounds 10 people. That was up in Minnesota. I think he was a Somalian because Minneapolis and Columbus are the 2 cities with the largest populations of Somali Muslim immigrants. So now there was a Manhattan bombing, don't forget, not far out east from Philadelphia, just a couple-hour drive up there in New York. He planted those pipe bombs that went off, and 29 people were wounded. And now, of course, this week, Abdul Ali Artan rams his car into crowds of students, slashes them with butcher knife. 11 people are wounded on November 28th. It points out in this article the last 4 attacks were all carried out by Muslims who came to America through the United Nations Refugee Resettlement Program, overseen by the U.S. State Department. So 3 of the 4 used knives in these mass attacks, and that's a key component of global Islamic terror inspired by multiple verses in the Quran. So we need to wake up. These lone wolf the attacks. Sometimes there's individuals who do this, sometimes couples, but they all seem to be inspired by radical Islam, and it's the politically correct crowd says, oh no, there's no association. You and I are journalists, radio journalists. And so the Society of Professional Journalists has in their guidelines to say never associate Muslims or Islam with terrorism. What do you think of that, Rick?
It's nuts. Let's call a rose by the name a rose. Is a rose by any other name? No. It's this political correctness crap, JD, that's killing Americans. Absolutely killing Americans. You know, JD, I'll tell you a story unrelated to what you're talking about, but it's what these liberal courts are doing and this liberalization of America. Get this story, JD. Not too far from here in Atlantic County, New Jersey, a family court has awarded custody of a 13-year-old girl to a 50-year-old man who is unmarried, is not a relation to this girl in any way, and doesn't have a job.
Wow.
I mean, can you imagine that? A court awarding a 13-year-old girl to an unmarried man who's not even a relative? And where he got involved was, this child is an orphan. This child was being raised by an aunt. This child's mother was killed, in a street crime. So the aunt took this child in. Apparently the mother and the aunt were sisters. And this man, this guy that got custody of the child, had dated both the mother and the aunt.
Oh, please.
So the court awarded custody of this 13-year-old child to this 50-year-old man. I'm not saying anything's happening here, but this is what is happening in liberal America. You can't call terrorism terrorism. You can't say that radical Muslims have committed these acts of terrorism. Courts are doing their liberal thing. And where are the lawmakers? They're sitting on their thumbs. They're really sitting on their thumbs and allowing this to happen. Where is the protection of we the people? Oh, yet courts say, we can't protect ourselves. We can't arm ourselves. We have to get gun permits to be able to carry to protect ourselves. That police officer that stopped this terrorist attack at Ohio State was relatively close. But he didn't get there until after 11 people were wounded.
Yes.
The police in San Bernardino were only a mile away. But they didn't get there until 14 people were killed. You know, these politicians, these lawmakers, these courts are putting America in jeopardy. They're putting Americans in jeopardy. Where's the common sense here?
Well, Rick, as we close down this first session, Congress, and you need to recall and impeach judges. That hasn't happened in a long, long time. But you have a number of radical judges out there who need to be scrutinized and reviewed. And if they won't enforce the Constitution or even the constitutions of the states where they are judges, they need to be removed. And so it once again, I think it falls back to exercising the powers of the Constitution provided to we the people. And they haven't been doing that.
No. And, right. I've called a couple legislatures in Atlantic County, Atlantic County, New Jersey, Senator Jim Whalen, Assemblyman Chris Brown. I wanted to ask them what their thoughts on this was. You know what they do? They sent me a hotline number. A hotline number. Like that's going to do a lot of good in protecting a 13-year-old girl. A hotline number. They should be looking into this. Not sending out a hotline number. They're the ones that should be calling the hotline number. And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show. with J.D. Manier and Rick Trader coming to you live from the studios of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Radio, American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM, FM 24/7. I bet if their daughter was in the hands of a 50-year-old man, they would want to do more than call a hotline number. We'll be right back. They say I'm nasty, but
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
This is Pastor Christina Lamanier, chaplain for the INRA.
And I'm her husband, J.D. Manier. We help co-host on the Conservative Commandos radio show, and we want to sincerely thank our listeners who turned out to vote in mass to elect Donald Trump, Governor Mike Pence, and conservative congressional candidates across our nation.
Against incredible odds, you helped create the strongest GOP team to take the reins of power in Washington since the 1920s. General George Patton said, "It's the unconquerable soul of man, not the nature of the weapon he uses, that ensures victory." We salute all of you for taking a stand for truth, freedom, and defending our constitutional form of government. Let us continue to pray for our nation and for God's blessings. May God save the United States of America.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with J.D. Manier and yours truly, Rick Trader. And for rebroadcasts of our shows, please check out our website, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com. Or at 11 p.m., log on to highplainsdailynews.com. Or you can hear our show any time of the day from your telephone by calling 832-999-1199. JD, how about if we tell our listeners who our guests are for today?
I think we got a tremendous show again. And Fred Lucas, our own Fred Lucas, from the Heritage Foundation, the Daily Signal, he's the White House correspondent. And he's also the Conservative Commander Radio Show White House correspondent. And he's going to talk about at least 800,000 illegals, non-citizens, voted in this election. And we think they voted majoritarily for Hillary Clinton. And a lot of good information on that. Mm-hmm. Love having Fred on the show.
We sure always love to have Fred on. And, of course, we have to add to that he's the official, unofficial White House correspondent for the Conservative Commandos. But who's counting?
And then we got at 405 Joseph Carraro. He's a former New Mexico state senator for about 24 years, and he's a playwright. And he has an off-Broadway play that's a whole lot better than Hamilton. It's called Conversations with an Average Joe. And it's a political play, and he was friends with Jack Kemp when he was in his political days. And also it was Ronald Reagan who encouraged him to get into politics back 20, 30 years ago. So we look forward to hear from Joseph Carraro. We're talking about corruption. That's what that play is all about, is the corruption in Washington, corruption in politics.
Interesting. And we're also going to be speaking with former Congressman Paul Brown. Dr. Brown's a primary physician who represented the 10th Congressional District of Georgia. And while serving in Congress, he was appointed to the House Homeland Security Committee of the House Committee on Natural Resources, and he served as chairman of the Investigations and Oversight Committee for the House Science and Technology Committee. And Dr. Brown's going to be joining us to talk about the people that Donald Trump is selecting him to surround him in his cabinet. And so he's great to have Dr. Brown join us. So, JD, I'll give you what else is on your radar screen.
Well, this is kind of a segue into, I think we have a great conversation with Fred Lucas here in just about 10 minutes or so. But I was looking at, again today, WorldNet Daily reporting, remember Catherine Engelbrecht? She's been on the radio show.
She's been on with us, yes.
Yeah. Well, she says she's convinced Trump is right, that millions of illegals voted in this past presidential election. And he could have won the popular vote.
JD, I think I mentioned this to you. When I went to vote, again, I voted in a very small town, and I'll repeat this again when Fred joins us. But I voted in a very small town. The township has only about a residency of about 6,000 people. And in that township, there's like 6 different voting districts, I think, 5 or 6 different voting districts. And when I went in to vote, which was about 9 o'clock in the morning, I was there for about 10 minutes. It didn't take long to sign in the books, get my ballot, go in, vote, come out. And then I saw a guy there who I knew who was limping, and I had to find out what was wrong with Francis's ankle. And while I was there were about 10 other people that were there to vote. Mind you, very small town, very small township. 5 of those 10 people, JD, that came in there to vote, 5 of the 10 people were not on the voter registration rolls.
Whoa.
So they were offered provisional ballots. So I don't know under what circumstances they weren't on the voter rolls, under what circumstances they got provisional ballots. But it's very suspicious to me. Very suspicious to me.
Well, Christina and I, Indianapolis, spent 14 hours on Election Day working as with the Marion County, Indianapolis, if you will, election board. And we were at 5 in the morning going out to the precincts as couriers. And, there's the early voting in Indiana. And so we had the roll list of the early voters, and you got to get to these precincts and let them know, hey, mark this off so there's no way these people can vote twice as long as you guys update your roll books. Well, we found that a number of the precincts we went to didn't quite have that up to date. And so as we did that all morning, they weren't keeping up. It was a huge turnout, albeit, and we all know that. It was a huge turnout. But, yeah, there's a lot to be said about this new Trump administration and Congress looking at cleaning up the voter rolls and what's going on. Americans for Legal Immigration, it's a PAC, says 46 states have prosecuted or convicted cases of voter fraud, and more than 24 million invalid voter registrations were found.
24 million?
That included 1.8 million dead voters still on the rolls, and 2.75 million Americans are registered to vote in more than one state. That concerns me about New Hampshire, of one of the places, but other states. And we have a problem. John McLaughlin did a survey in 2013. He found 13% of the non-citizen Hispanics, they admitted they were registered to vote. Well, Rick, you take 20 million, I think Ann Coulter estimates 20 to 30 million non-citizen Hispanics in this nation. You take 13% of them registered to vote, that's millions and millions of people who are voting illegally. And so we're going to talk more about this with Fred Lucas. But, you know, here we got Jill Stein, the last major federal recount that we did was, remember, Coleman and Franken up there in Minnesota?
Absolutely. Well, JD, just doing a little bit of quick math, which, gotta admit, is not my strong point, that if we have 20 million illegal Hispanics here in this country, if 13% of those people who are here illegally are registered to vote, that's 2.6 million people, JD.
Huge.
That in and of itself right there is 2.6 million people. So I believe, and I've said this all along, I think anywhere from 3 to 5% of Hillary Clinton's vote come from illegal voters. I do. And when Donald Trump talks about he feels he won the popular vote, I believe him. I don't care what the tally says, that Hillary Clinton has 2 million more popular votes than Donald Trump. I say at least 3 to 5% of her vote were illegally cast. And not just by people here, Mexicans or South Americans or Central Americans or any other hyphenated American that's here illegally. I think that there's a lot of fraudulent vote. After all, and then we've got to go to a break after this. Brendan Byrne, former governor of New Jersey, proudly stated that when he died, he wanted to be buried in Hudson County so his vote would continue to count. And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with J.D. Manier and Rick Trader, coming to you live from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM, FM 24/7. Today's show is being brought to you by the First Amendment, protected by the Second. Don't go away. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with Fred Lucas, White House correspondent for thedailysignal.com and the official and unofficial White House correspondent for us at Conservative Commandos.
This is Rick Trader, host of the Conservative Commandos radio show.
And I'm John Forsyth, owner of WNJC Radio. Fellow patriots, the Conservative Commandos radio show is for conservatives, about conservatives, and by conservatives.
We are patriots who want to take our country back from the likes of Barack Obama, Harry Reid, George Soros, and Nancy Pelosi.
But we can't keep up this fight without your critical support today. Can you help? Please go to www.helpccrs.com right now and make a donation by credit card or PayPal. That's www.helpccrs.com.
Our goal is to expose the liberal agenda and distortions.
We are fighting to spread the truth about political issues, political leaders, and conservative issues and values.
Our hosts are not paid. In fact, we buy our own airtime, studio time, and pay our own expenses.
We created the show because we are trying to make a difference. So can you help the CCRS expose the truth in 2014 and beyond? Go to www.helpccrs.com.
Help keep the Conservative Commandos radio show on the air by going to www.helpccrs.com and make a donation today to return our country to the conservative roots created by our founding fathers.
This is Pastor Christina Lamanier, chaplain for the INRA.
And I'm her husband, J.D. Manier. We help co-host on the Conservative Commandos radio show, and we want to sincerely thank our listeners who turned out to vote in mass to elect Donald Trump, Governor Mike Pence, and conservative congressional candidates across our nation.
Against incredible odds, you helped create the strongest GOP team to take the reins of power in Washington since the 1920s. General George Patton said, "It's the unconquerable soul of man, not the nature of the weapon he uses, that ensures victory." We salute all of you for taking a stand for truth, freedom, and defending our constitutional form of government. Let us continue to pray for our nation and for God's blessings. May God save the United States of America.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired, as I am, about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard. From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet. We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with J.D. Manier and yours truly, Rick Trader. And for rebroadcasts, check out our website, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com, or at 11 p.m., log on to highplainsdailynews.com, or you could hear our show any time of the day from your telephone by calling 832-999-1199. J.D., our first guest is with us. Will you please welcome them?
Well, Fred Lucas has covered the presidency and national politics from Washington for almost a decade. He regularly contributes to FoxNews.com and Political Storm. He was a contributing editor at Town Hall Magazine from 2010 to 2013. He's written for the Weekly Standard, Human Events, and the American Spectator. The author of the books Tainted by Suspicion, The Secret Deals, and Electoral Chaos of Disputed Presidential Elections. That's Stairway Press, published in 2016. And another book, The Right Frequency, The Talk Radio Giants Who Shook Up the Political and Media Establishment, also published in 2012 by History Publishing. Welcome back, Fred, to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
Hey, Rush Limbaugh and Donald Trump believe millions of non-citizens voted in this past presidential election. And you say over 800,000. In either case, those are huge numbers. Please talk about that.
This was a study by Old Dominion University. It was actually done in 2014, and it found about 6.4% of non-citizens living in the United States. Now that could be, in some cases, illegal immigrants, but not necessarily all illegal. They could be legal citizens, legal residents. But they were non-citizens, so they're not allowed to vote. But about 6.4% in 2008 presidential election of non-citizens voted that year. That could actually have split the state of North Carolina. So that was a finding then. Old Dominion actually did an update and extrapolated on that a bit. And they determined that if that happened this year, it would be roughly 800,000 non-citizens voting, and that's not quite what Donald Trump had suggested, and that would have changed the popular vote altogether. But it is a pretty significant number, and it's somewhat alarming.
Well, that's still huge. Yeah, I've read too that a Harvard University fellow, he's at the other end of the spectrum. He did a study, and he claims 0% of the non-citizens voted in the past election.
That's, yes, they did respond to that, and that was. It seems possible, but it's not quite 6%. But it seems nearly impossible that it's literally 0%.
I thought that was more statistically impossible than all of those Philadelphia precincts in 2012 that voted 100% for Obama over Romney.
Right. And we're all aware of the various states, precincts, and out there where there are more registered voters than there are people living in these areas. So. Yeah, I mean, we've seen dozens of cases of this, and so this study does not factor into, and it's something I mentioned in here. The Pew Research Center also did a study that looked at the number of problems with voter registration, and found that was a bit of a mess too, in which you had millions of people who were not registered in the proper place. So, I mean, there are other avenues for fraud that are out there. This is the Old Dominion study was specifically narrowed regarding non-citizens voting.
Yeah, and our Heritage Foundation's Hans von Spakovsky, he brought up a case by the Public Interest Legal Foundation, found 1,000 non-citizens registered to vote in 8 counties in Virginia, and they were all legal residents, but they weren't citizens. They had voted in prior elections as well. So that's just 8 counties, and so this is pretty systemic across this country, I think.
Right. And Donald Trump did suggest he mentioned Virginia as one of the Virginia, California, and New Hampshire. I think Donald Trump named those as places he believes, at least, that there is voter fraud. So that's Virginia was a state where the governor, Terry McAuliffe, actually commuted and provided restored voting rights for numerous convicted felons, thousands and thousands and thousands of convicted felons in the state. And I think with a hope, Terry McAuliffe, of course, formerly a major Clinton fundraiser, and one time the campaign manager for Hillary Clinton's first campaign. So he was doing all he could to ensure she wins Virginia.
Fred, the last major federal recount was Coleman versus Franken in Minnesota. That left us with Obamacare, and that took months. So we had Franken, and now we have Stein. Please update our listeners on this election horror movie trying to premiere in 3 states. 3 states won by Donald Trump.
Right. 3 states, she is, basically she's trying to patch up the blue wall for the Democrats. What was the big story, I think, over the weekend when Hillary Clinton's campaign said they were getting involved in this. I think there is suspicion, no flat-out evidence, but I think we're going to find, my guess is, that the Green Party has raised twice as much money to push this recount as was given to Jill Stein's entire presidential campaign. I think we're going to find that a whole lot of Clinton donors are behind this whole effort. And it looks like it might be potentially a very last-gasp effort by Clinton to flip some of these states. Now, if that occurred, she would have to flip all 3 states if she were to become president. That would get her right to 270.
Hey, Fred, hasn't...
That's not something that's ever going to happen.
Hey, Fred, hasn't the time passed that they could file a challenge in Pennsylvania?
In Pennsylvania, yes. In Pennsylvania, it has. There was a November 21st deadline.
Right.
Jill Stein is suing there. So
she's suing there.
It's not likely she'll win, but she is suing, so you never know what maybe a politically motivated judge might do in a state like Pennsylvania. So,
and also, Fred, when you talk about states like Minnesota and people like Al Franken, that was a highly controversial race where weren't there a couple of recounts there, and the final recount was decided by about 200 ballots that was found in the trunk of somebody's car, and every one of them was a vote for Al Franken.
Right, and that was actually we had all that out of the 2000 Senate race where he beat Norm Coleman.
Right, and also when you talk about Virginia and Terry McAuliffe as governor, and you're down there in or near Virginia, you should know this better than I, and I'm just asking the question. Weren't those 2 races, the race for governor and the last race for senator, decided by a few thousand votes in and of itself?
Yeah, we actually had we did have a very close Senate race here and governor's race, close race to governor's race. In Virginia, there was two attorney general races actually within the last 12 years that were just decided by about 100 votes.
Wow! So when you're talking about voter fraud, if you want to say 6% of the illegals vote, I mean that illegal vote swings elections, Fred, or can swing elections.
Right, yeah, it definitely can. When there's an overwhelming amount,
right,
it's not going to swing elections. But when races are close, and they often are in these battleground states, it can swing an election. What I will say is that Jill Stein is trying to contest these races. She does not have a point. These are races where Donald Trump, his lowest margin is in Michigan, margin of victory. That's 10,000 votes. No recount has ever swung an election with that many. Recounts swing elections typically that are a few hundred votes.
All right. Hey, Fred, we got to take a break. Could you hold on for just 2 minutes for us, please?
Yeah.
You are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with J.D. Manier and Rick Trader, coming to you live from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia, around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM, FM 24/7. Joining us this segment is White House correspondent Fred Lucas from The Blaze, and also the official, unofficial White House correspondent for the Conservative Commandos. Talking about non-citizens may voted. What do you think the possibility of that is? Be right back.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
This is Pastor Christina Lamanier, chaplain for the INRA.
And I'm her husband, J.D. Manier. We help co-host on the Conservative Commandos radio show, and we want to sincerely thank our listeners who turned out to vote en masse to elect Donald Trump, Governor Mike Pence, and conservative congressional candidates across our nation.
Against incredible odds, you helped create the strongest GOP team to take the reins of power in Washington since the 1920s. General George Patton said, "It's the unconquerable soul of man, not the nature of the weapon he uses, that ensures victory." We salute all of you for taking a stand for truth, freedom, and defending our constitutional form of government. Let us continue to pray for our nation and for God's blessings. May God save the United States of America.
You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
And this is J.D. Manier, your host, Rick Trader. And if you'd like to hear rebroadcasts of today's show, please check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com and CCRShow.com. Or at 11 p.m., log on to HighPlainsDailyNews.com. Now you can listen to the Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. We're speaking with Fred Lucas, White House correspondent for the Daily Signal and Conservative Commandos Radio Show. Welcome back, Fred.
Hi, thanks for having me in.
Okay, now what about Nevada, New Hampshire, Colorado, and Virginia? You know, Jill Stein, why isn't she trying to sprinkle her fairness recount dust on those states won by Hillary, to counterbalance and make it fair? What's going on there?
Right, yeah. I mean, the Green Party is supposed to be all about fairness. She isn't going there. I kind of doubt she would raise the amount of money that she's raised from the Hillary people if she went after those states. So, Donald Trump has said this is nothing but a fundraising target. And I mean, people have to wonder, and Donald Trump has expressed this, Newt Gingrich has expressed this, if this is just really is the Green Party just kind of acting as a front here for the Clinton campaign. The Clinton campaign doesn't want to look like they are the ones behind this, the ones pushing this kind of last gasp effort to flip the election back. That could be, and I think the people who are funding this effort might give you some clue into that. When those the donations are coming in, we're going to see eventually when those donations are made public through disclosure forms, who is donating that, and that's going to be the most interesting thing, I think. Who's funding these recounts?
Fred, when you talk about that, I've seen reports that some people speculate that George Soros' money is also behind this. And that, when you look at things, and I've heard other people say that it was Jill Stein, her involvement in this, and I guess you could say that of Gary Johnson too, that cost Hillary Clinton this election. I can remember before the election took place looking at the polls, and I know the polls have been shown not to be accurate all the time, but in a lot of the polls, where it was judged just a two-way race between Clinton and Trump, that Clinton would be winning, but when you added Jill Stein and Gary Johnson in, that swung it to Donald Trump.
Yeah, I think she might. The number of votes Jill Stein got in Wisconsin, certainly Michigan, I think, kind of did. I think was over the margin that Trump beat Clinton by.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it could have. First, you have to factor in, would all those third-party voters have actually voted for Clinton? I mean, they wouldn't have voted for Trump, but would they have even shown up? But assuming they did, it might have flipped those two states. It still wouldn't flip a pretty big margin in Pennsylvania. There were 70,000 votes lead for Trump in Pennsylvania. So he still would have won Pennsylvania. He still would have won the Electoral College.
Right. When you talk about Pennsylvania, Fred, Pennsylvania is kind of like New Jersey. And just tell you a story that I told J.D. before we got you on the line. The former governor of New Jersey, Brendan Byrne, said that when he died, he wanted to be buried in Hudson County so his vote would continue to count. In Pennsylvania, you want to talk about voter fraud in Pennsylvania. In the 2012 elections, in 59 of the voting districts in Philadelphia, and there's like a little over 1,000 voting districts in Philadelphia, but in 59 of those voting districts, Mitt Romney did not get a single vote. Not a single hanging chad, not a single mark in the wrong place, not a single push the wrong button. He didn't get a single vote. And that encompassed 19,000 votes.
I think Republicans almost had to factor that in, and maybe in past elections they didn't when they were chasing Pennsylvania. Trump actually might have won quite overwhelmingly. I mean, there's no way to know without any prosecutions. We haven't seen any prosecutions of voter fraud. Certainly not at the federal level. So,
well, Fred, that's one thing I've been saying here in Conservative Commandos. I think one of the things that Donald Trump should do in his first 4 years is to clean up this voter fraud. We need voter identification when people go to the polls, just like you need voter identification when you go to when you go to a doctor or you buy Lysol or anything else, cold capsules. They want to see photo identification. So I think that one of the things that Donald Trump really needs to do in his first 4 years is do something about voter fraud. I mean, Mike.
I think so. I mean, he talked a lot about it, and I think you will see the Justice Department under Jeff Sessions prosecute cases. We've had a Justice Department run by Eric Holder and Loretta Lynch for 8 years. They're not going to go after voter fraud cases because most of the time, it doesn't necessarily is all the time, but most of the time, voter fraud benefits Democrats.
And Fred Lucas, I'll tell you another story that I was telling JD before he came on. And I think it's worth repeating. Where I vote in a very small township. The township only has a population of about 5,000 or 6,000 people total. The township is divided into like 5 or 6 different towns. Each town has its own little polling place. Okay? Well, I went to vote about 9 o'clock in the morning, and while I was voting and registering the vote and shooting the bull with another guy there were probably about 10 other people that came in to vote. 5 of those people were not on the voter registration rolls. Those 5 people were given provisional ballots. Now, I don't think my little town and my little township was targeted by any group or whatever, but I think this may be an indication of what went on this last election. That a lot of people, with the fever of this campaign, decide, well, I'm going to go try to vote. And I'm not going to get arrested. All they're going to do is give me a provisional ballot.
Right.
No one's going to question me. No one dare question me, or we'll have all kinds of lawsuits going on. A little town, Fred, a little town of maybe, as I say, there's 6,000 people in the whole township. The 10 minutes that I was in one polling place, 5 people came in, tried to vote, and weren't on the voter registration rolls.
I was actually talking to some folks just a few days ago about how George Soros is probably a bigger threat to U.S. elections than Vladimir Putin. We've seen like a big part of almost conspiracy theory that Jill Stein is pushing is that Vladimir Putin has hacked all the elections.
Right.
Hillary Clinton has tried to say that. One, you can't actually hack voting machines. They're pretty individual. They've got to be hacked one at a time. You can't remotely hack them. But George Soros, I mean, you're aware he owns quite a few voting machines, quite a few of those vendors. So that's something that a lot of people weren't worried about. And
yeah, well,
Soros has kicked in here.
Fred, we just lost Fidel Castro. Maybe George Soros is not that far behind him.
I don't want to go there.
Well, I'll go there. I'm in an ornery mood. JD, you wanted to jump back in.
You know, Obama himself admitted on video to Spanish language audiences. I'm reading today from an article, WorldNet Daily again. He said, you will face, he talked to illegal immigrants. And he says, you'll face no scrutiny or hindrance registering to vote. And he encouraged them to get out there and vote. Well, that's a felony. Deportable offenses. But you mentioned it. You know, the Department of Justice and Homeland Security, they've done nothing to qualify voters and to clean up these horrible rolls. And it's going to be a great thing for the Trump-Pence administration to start in on that. And we're fighting the League of Women Voters and the NAACP and a bunch of other groups. Go ahead and comment, Fred.
Oh, well, yeah, I was just going to say, not only has the Obama administration not done anything, they've actually states that have tragedies. Governor Rick Scott in Florida and some other states as well just tried to clean up the voter rolls, tried to get dead people off the voter rolls, tried to get people who have moved out of state or moved into different parts of the state off the voter rolls in a particular precinct. The Justice Department came in and said you can't do that. That's a civil rights violation. So yeah, I mean it doesn't take a genius to figure out what the real motivation is. They weren't concerned about civil rights here. They wanted to have as many voters and potentially as much confusion on the voter rolls as possible.
Fred, we're coming against that heartbreak. It's been great having you on the show. How can our radio audience read more of your works, obtain some of your books? And can you give them a blog or website they can go to?
Yeah. Please just check out dailysignal.com. I pretty much have a story there every day. So.
Well, we thank you for coming on the show again.
Check out the book as well.
Hey, Fred, please, before you go, pitch your book.
Tainted by Suspicion, the secret deals and electoral chaos of disputed presidential elections. Looks at every time an election dragged out well beyond Election Day, and that's somewhat is happening this year. So you can get kind of a historical take on what's happened in the past with recounts, litigation, when another branch of government decided the president.
Fred Lucas, thanks for joining us. Take care. God bless.
Thanks. You too.
All right. JD, want to take us to break?
Yeah, we're coming to you live. JD Manier and Rick Trader from the Concerted Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, and AM/FM 24/7.
Crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
This is Rick Trader, host of the Conservative Commandos radio show.
And I'm John Forsyth, owner of WNJC Radio. Fellow patriots, The Conservative Commandos radio show is for conservatives, about conservatives, and by conservatives.
We are patriots who want to take our country back from the likes of Barack Obama, Harry Reid, George Soros, and Nancy Pelosi.
But we can't keep up this fight without your critical support today. Can you help? Please go to www.helpccrs.com right now and make a donation by credit card or PayPal. That's www.helpccrs.com.
Our goal is to expose the liberal agenda and distortions.
We are fighting to spread the truth about political issues, political leaders, and conservative issues and values.
Our hosts are not paid. In fact, we buy our own airtime, studio time, and pay our own expenses.
We created the show because we are trying to make a difference. So can you help the CCRS expose the truth in 2014 and beyond? Go to www.helpccrs.com.
Help keep the Conservative Commandos radio show on the air by going to www.helpccrs.com and make a donation today to return our country to the conservative roots created by our founding fathers.
This is Pastor Christina Lamanier, chaplain for the INRA.
And I'm her husband, J.D. Manier. We help co-host on the Conservative Commandos radio show, and we want to sincerely thank our listeners who turned out to vote in mass to elect Donald Trump, Governor Mike Pence, and conservative congressional candidates across our nation.
Against incredible odds, you helped create the strongest GOP team to take the reins of power in Washington since the 1920s. General George Patton said, "It's the unconquerable soul of man, not the nature of the weapon he uses, that ensures victory." We salute all of you for taking a stand for truth, freedom, and defending our constitutional form of government. Let us continue to pray for our nation and for God's blessings. May God save the United States of America.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired, as I am, about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard. From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet. We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
If you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com and co.com. Or at 11 p.m., log on to highplainsdailynews.com. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. Our next guest, Joseph Carraro, served as New Mexico State Senator from 1985 to 2009. He was executive member of the National Energy Council and visited every state as chairman and member of national committees. He has expertise in issues such as finance, education, energy, environment, trade, international relations. He was with Jack Kemp and championed development of inner cities and tax reform. And he's a former acquaintance of Ronald Reagan, who encouraged him to run for elected office. And also he was appointed by Clinton administration on the Commission for Disabled Americans. Welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show, Joseph.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Please update our listeners on your recent play titled Conversations with an Average Joe. It's been described as a movement.
Well, it really is. As a matter of fact, we were talking about it last night about it. It's really not a play anymore. It's becoming an event. There's so much going on in our country that I have really started to deal with many years ago. It was about 3 years ago when I started to write Conversations. And it was going to be a play about my experience. As a matter of fact, in the play, it's all just true stories about people I've dealt with and issues I've been involved with. And it just came down to where I thought it was time that someone did an expose about what was happening to our country, all the corruption going on in politics and in corporations, and how the two get together in government with corporations, and we just don't have a chance as average Joes anymore, and we didn't have a voice. So I decided to, at first I started writing it seemed like it was a documentary. It was about 6 hours worth of stuff that I had put together that I had to now cut that back to 2 hours. So I had to leave out a lot of stuff. But it started back then. I guess I was talking about things like the Clinton Foundation and their dealings around the world. And people said, well, that's not really happening. I said, well, yeah. I said, I've investigated. It has proof. I just used to get in conversations with people in government that used to tell me things that would happen. I talked to people. Remember, I talked to people around the world who had more information than we as average citizens had. People that found out things or would deal, like, say, with the Clintons or whoever was president. It seemed like it was always something going on. As a matter of fact, since Ronald Reagan, I think there's been so many things happening in this country that we don't get information about that really we need to know to be able to not only survive ourselves as individuals and maintain our individual liberties, but to be able to go ahead and kind of fight back and make demands that we really don't know anything about. And that's why I really miss Reagan. But since that time, like I said, it's been a disaster, the things that have happened to our country. And now, even today, to be able to think of how many rights we've lost, what's going on, and that we don't even know about. So that's why I decided to write the play. There's a lot of stuff in there, some stuff that's really very, very current that I had predicted would happen. But it's just it's something that kind of a wake up call to America that unless we get busy, unless we stay involved, unless we do things that we have to be able to do to take our country back. That was one of the phrases I used before Donald Trump came up with his, keep America great again. It was, make the country ours again. So that's kind of what the play is about. It's in previews up in New York City. We had it planned to be on Broadway. I guess it was over a year ago, and then I just had some things happen in my life that I really couldn't participate with it. So now I'm back here in New York. Which is unbelievable to be in New York City to try and deal with this. But we're having a really good time. It's going to be a very big success, we think. Of course, with the timing of the election that happened, but even now that after the election, all the issues that are still out there that deal with corruption in our government.
Well, Joe, we've heard about the negative audience engagement with Hamilton play. I mean, that involved my governor, Mike Pence. But yeah, I hear your audience gets involved in a positive way. Talk about that.
Well, what we did originally, when I had a producer and a director that was really excited about the play, we decided, and this was during the period of time when we had, I think it was 16 Republican candidates and 3 Democrat candidates. Of course, that expanded a little more. But I sent the play out to each candidate. And then, of course, when Trump got involved, I sent him a copy of the play as well as other people. But we asked them to come to the play and become involved because we wanted to have it like a town hall meeting. In other words, we had hundreds of people come to see the play. We thought that right after they saw the play, we'd have one candidate sit on stage and take questions. And we had 4 that answered the call and said that they would do it. It was Carson, Fiorina, Cruz, and Sanders. At the time, of course, they were all getting like about 10 or 12 people involved in their campaigns with town hall meetings. But we thought it was a good idea, and that kind of spurred us on to keep going. Of course, then we had the election. We hadn't even had the opening yet. I mean, we were still in what they call previews, where you just have dress rehearsals where people come and comment, and we get it right, we get the cast right. There's 10 members in the cast that are on stage at all times. That sometimes you have 9 that are great, and you have 1 that needs to learn to line, so you have to go back and do it. But we want to have some way to engage the public, to get them involved, and so that's one way we did it. Like I said, to have political people and be faced with the questions and get on stage. I do it whenever we have a performance. I go up there and answer questions from the audience. But we really do need to get people involved, and that's the whole purpose of the play. It's entertaining. I mean, people laugh, they applaud, they shake their heads in agreement. It always gets a standing ovation, but the point is that we want people to leave the play saying, okay, there's something we can do. We got to do something. We had no idea. As a matter of fact, we've had people now, even after the election, we've had over 400 cast members apply to be in the play. We do try to audition all of them just to see what their capabilities are, because we have all these different characters. Like we have a retired guy, we have a college student, a law student, we have a veteran. Of course, the veteran's kind of like the leader in the play. I mean, they all have leading roles. We have a restaurant owner. We just have a bunch of different people, like a teacher. We have an environmentalist. We have a nurse. So all these are characters that we hope emulate and reach out to the people in the audience and people around the country who have problems, and these characters explain their problems. So what we try to do is we try to get members of the audience to look and be able to say, wow, that happened to me, and we've got to do something. And it turns out, like I said, with these cast members, these new people coming in, so many are millennials that are trying to be cast as a college student or law student. And what they say is amazing, because they say, we had no idea. We had no idea this was going on in our country. I mean, the stories that you're telling, could they be true? I said, well, of course they'd be true. If they weren't, I'd be sued. But I said, these are all true stories that happened to me. As a matter of fact, most of them, it's about me. I had to start different characters kind of playing me. I said, but how do people get away with the stuff that they do to us? They said, yeah, and we talk about like how even it started out with we have a retired guy who talks about how the phone company ripped him off and takes money off him every week, and how they do it to everybody in the country. As it turns out, Ed, when I was writing my play, sure enough, when we put it on, people said, oh, this doesn't really happen.
Hey, Joe, I got to stop you for a minute. When you talk about politicians and the phone company, here in New Jersey, they had a scam that was perpetrated by the state government on the ratepayers of telephone bills. They raised $1.6 billion in taxes off phone bills that was supposed to go to a 911 system. Guess what? We still don't have that 911 system after over $1 billion in taxes.
It's incredible.
So
let me say, anything the player talked about, on everybody's bill, there's a little thing called a linebacker fee. And I can remember calling the phone company. I said, hey, listen, I was just checking my bill. What is this linebacker fee? I said, oh, it protects you in case anything goes wrong with the wires, the phone wires, walls inside your house. I go, wait, my homeowner's insurance covers that. You mean like a car runs into my living room, my house burns down?
Yeah.
He said, yeah, and I said, wait, I'm getting charged $6 a month. I said, for 10 years? I said, I want my money back. I said, sorry, we can't do that.
Hey, Joe, we got to take a break. Could you hold on for us for just 2 minutes, please? And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with J.D. Manier and Rick Trader, coming to you live from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network here at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM, FM 24/7. Don't go away. We're talking about talking to the average Joe. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
This is Pastor Christina Lamanier, chaplain for the INRA.
And I'm her husband, J.D. Manier. We help co-host on the Conservative Commandos radio show, and we want to sincerely thank our listeners who turned out to vote in mass to elect Donald Trump, Governor Mike Pence, and conservative congressional candidates across our nation.
Against incredible odds, you helped create the strongest GOP team to take the reins of power in Washington since the 1920s. General George Patton said, "It's the unconquerable soul of man, not the nature of the weapon he uses, that ensures victory." We salute all of you for taking a stand for truth, freedom, and defending our constitutional form of government. Let us continue to pray for our nation and for God's blessings. May God save the United States of America.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
If you'd like to hear rebroadcasts of today's show, just check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com and CCRShow.com. Or at 11 p.m. in the evening, log on to HighPlainsDailyNews.com. And you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. We're with Joseph Carraro, former New Mexico State Senator and a playwright. And welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show, Joe.
Thank you so much. It's great being here.
Well, let's talk a little about your play. I mean, you talk about corruption and all the problems. You know, Obama says he's proud no scandals existed during his administration.
I mean, You know, it is so much stuff. Like I said, I had to play it was 6 hours long. I had to cut it back to 2 hours. I had to take out most of the stuff out. And it's not just through Obama. It's been through many, many years that the stuff goes on that we don't, like, so we not only go through voice, but we can't do anything about it. Like we were just talking about the phone company, how they can take $6 out of everybody's, out of everybody's bill every month, and we don't even know what it's about. And then when we go in and find out what it's about, the government comes back and says, listen, we can't cause the phone company to pay you back all this money. As a matter of fact, they just had a ruling. AT&T was caught. They said that they really thought that they took over $1 billion out of everybody's bill through overcharges. So they were caught. And they found out that they said, okay, we're going to charge them. We're taking $300 million out of everybody's bill. So what they do is the government fines them $110 million. So they cheated us with taking all that money out. And they get fined, and they still turn a profit. And does anybody go to jail? No. But I'll tell you what, you run down to the store and grab a phone and run out without paying for it, you'll go to jail.
Hey, Joe, let me ask you this. What happened to that $110 million?
Yeah, did it come back to us?
Did it come back to us? No. You know, it's like in New Jersey, Joe. You know, they had these stupid red camera lights. That
that's in my play.
That every time anyone got a violation, they got a ticket of $87, an $87 ticket. Okay? Well, they said these cameras were illegal. They took them down. There was a class action suit. You know what the people got back, Joe, on an $87 ticket? From this class action suit, they got back $8.70.
And where'd the rest go?
Where'd the rest go? And that's not including the insurance front. You know, Joe, I got to be honest with you, not to insult you. You're really not a very clever guy, because when you have things like this going on, true facts, you don't need much of an imagination to come up with a Broadway play. So not to insult you, but you're not that clever, Joe. You don't have that great of an imagination.
That's right.
All you have to do is read the stinking paper.
Anything. It was just all true. It's a great play. You must be a genius. As a genius, all I'm doing is I'm telling you exactly what happened to me. And people go, oh, come on. And sure enough, it doesn't know what just happened to me. It happens to the audience. So hopefully we have an audience. They don't have that much of an imagination. Hopefully they'll realize all the stuff that's going on to them and how we have to change things. But how do you do that? That's the point. I mean, I'm talking about not only your phone company, Wachovia Bank. I mean, $460 billion that they were involved with laundering money with the Mexican drug cartels. Wachovia Bank, what happened? They just get a fine. Everybody just gets fined. And the money stays in the government. Nobody goes to jail.
Well, as you said, I'll tell you who goes to jail, the guy that steals the phone, runs out of the store, and they said, hey, Joe, personally, seriously, got to ask you a question. You're registered as an independent. You're not registered as a Democrat or a Republican independent. Why?
Well, I used to be a member of the Republican Party until I realized the Republican Party was corrupt. Then I had friends...
Oh, come on, Joe. You got to be kidding us. Are you pulling our leg on that one?
The party was corrupt. I had nowhere to go. It's incredible how much corruption goes on with these political parties.
Do you have any examples of that in your play?
Of course. Talk about it all the time, about all these politicians. But you know something? After writing this play, after, like I said, having 6 hours, I realized that half of it was about Republicans and half was Democrats. I point to one party and say, wow, these people are corrupt and the other party is really great. I talk about it all the time, of course.
So, Joe, give us some more examples of things that you talk about in your play.
Well, you know, it started out, I kind of took this out, but it was the overlying example. And I talked about, I was on Fox News about 3 weeks ago, talking about, this is just before the election. And we were talking about all the different problems we had or whatever. And after it was over, I had the anchors sitting around. Does anybody think about the $19 trillion in debt we have? Where'd that come from? It was because we built so many beautiful roads and bridges, so many great schools, gave everybody a great education, put money in our pockets so we were able to stimulate the economy. Where'd that money go to? Well, I'm telling you right now that I'd be willing to bet anything I have, that over half of it went to corruption. Corruption in government, how these greedy politicians and these greedy corporations have put together these schemes to take more money, not just for the government, but for themselves. I mean, think about how many people, like, say, everybody in Congress. Look at everybody in Congress. Man, I know all these people. I know a lot of them. I know a lot of congressmen and senators personally all these years. I didn't even know presidents personally all these years. People have put together deals where they make money, where they hire not only their wife gets hired or their spouses. I'm saying it's like their kids and their neighbors and their friends. But you take any senator in the United States Senate and look about how many people get hired that are. As a matter of fact, in my play, this is like I said, I wrote this 3 years ago. But in my play, I talk about. I said it's everybody. I talk about the Democrats doing it, making money. I talk about. I had in the play about. I'm not going to take it out now, but it's about Elizabeth Chow, the wife of
Mitch McConnell. Yeah.
Yeah, Mitch McConnell.
Yeah, well,
I have that in my play.
I would hope that both he and she would be drained when they pulled the plug on the swamp, but she's there. He's there.
Yeah. But that's what happens when you look at the deals. I mentioned the Supreme Court. You've got Clarence Thomas, his wife is a lobbyist for the healthcare industry. You got Kagan, who was just appointed by the president, who's the person who owes the president everything that she's got. So when they come down to vote on Obamacare, I mean, which way do they vote? I mean, we don't talk about issues anymore. We're talking about the pressures of having a wife that's a lobbyist or a benefactor that's the president that you're appointed. You vote that way. I mean, we have so many people that are just the system is corrupt. The whole system. Everything's about the greed of individuals, the greed of politicians and people that get elected to office who are trying to, come out of it where they're making more money.
Hey, Joe, we got to go in about 1 minute, but I wanted to give you ample time to tell our audience about the play, the who, what, where, when, how, why, and how they could see it.
The play is held at the Theater Center, which used to be the Snapple Theater. It's on Broadway and 50th Street. It's called Conversations with an Average Joe. It's the Jerry Orbach Theater. We're in previews right now if anybody wants to come to the previews, but certainly we're going to have an opening on December 11th. It's going to be a big opening. We have all the major news media is going to be covering it. It's a play about us average Joes, about how we have to go out there. We have to find out, first of all, agree to find out what's happening to us, and then figure out a way to stop it.
Well, Joe, I'm going to be in New York on December 8th. You should have had the opening December 8th, the matinee, and I would have been there.
Well, we may have to do something about that, huh?
Yeah, I'm putting that bug in your ear.
I'll have a dress rehearsal. I'll be there for a dress rehearsal.
Hey, that cast of 10, do you have room for an old, balding, white guy?
You know something we're looking for? I just put an ad in the paper for an old, balding, white guy.
There I am.
Be the veterans.
Hey, Joe, we got to go. We want to thank you so much for joining us on Conservative Commandos radio show. Best of luck to you. Best of luck to your play.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a good day, guys.
Take care.
God bless America.
God bless America. And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with J.D. Manier and Rick Trader, coming to you live from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM, FM 24/7. Don't go away. On the other side, we'll be speaking with Dr. Paul Brown, former congressman from the state of Georgia. Be right back.
Crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
This is Rick Trader, host of the Conservative Commandos radio show.
And I'm John Forsyth, owner of WNJC Radio. Fellow patriots, the Conservative Commandos radio show is for conservatives, about conservatives, and by conservatives.
We are patriots who want to take our country back from the likes of Barack Obama, Harry Reid, George Soros, and Nancy Pelosi.
But we can't keep up this fight without your critical support today. Can you help? Please go to www.helpccrs.com right now and make a donation by credit card or PayPal. That's www.helpccrs.com.
Our goal is to expose the liberal agenda and distortions.
We are fighting to spread the truth about political issues, political leaders, and conservative issues and values.
Our hosts are not paid. In fact, we buy our own airtime, studio time, and pay our own expenses.
We created the show because we are trying to make a difference. So can you help the CCRS expose the truth in 2014 and beyond? Go to www.helpccrs.com.
Help keep the Conservative Commandos radio show on the air by going to www.helpccrs.com and make a donation today to return our country to the conservative roots created by our founding fathers.
This is Pastor Christina Lamanier, chaplain for the INRA.
And I'm her husband, J.D. Manier. We help co-host on the Conservative Commandos radio show, and we want to sincerely thank our listeners who turned out to vote in mass to elect Donald Trump, Governor Mike Pence, and conservative congressional candidates across our nation.
Against incredible odds, you helped create the strongest GOP team to take the reins of power in Washington since the 1920s. General George Patton said, "It's the unconquerable soul of man, not the nature of the weapon he uses, that ensures victory." We salute all of you for taking a stand for truth, freedom, and defending our constitutional form of government. Let us continue to pray for our nation and for God's blessings. May God save the United States of America.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time without fail. Only one can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired, as I am, about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard. From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with J.D. Manier and yours truly, Rick Trader. And for rebroadcast, please check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com, or you can hear our show any time of the day from your telephone by calling 832-999-1199. Our guest this segment is former Congressman Dr. Paul Brown. He's a primary care physician. He represented the 10th Congressional District of Georgia for 4 terms, I do believe. And while serving in Congress, he was appointed to the House Homeland Security Committee, the House Committee on Natural Resources, and served as the chairman of the Investigations and Oversight Committee for the House Science and Technology Committee. Dr. Brown, welcome back to Conservative Commandos.
I'm blessed to be back with you, Rick and JD. Hello.
Hey. Dr. Brown, you and I had an occasion to talk over the weekend, and at that time, you actually predicted that Tom Price was going to be named the Health and Human Services Secretary.
Well, the press was talking about that. Dr. Price, my colleague from Georgia, is an orthopedic surgeon, medical doctor. He has been a very strong advocate for trying to get rid of the Unaffordable Uncaring Act, Obamacare. And so I saw him as probably being a lead candidate to being named as HHS Secretary. Mm-hmm. Dr. Price introduced one of the, I think there were 4 bills when I was in Congress. I had one, and Dr. Price had one, and there were a couple of others that totally repeals Obamacare and replaces it with a policy that is more patient-centered, and that's what Dr. Price tried to do, and that's what I tried to do. Mine, actually, the Option Act, it's H.R. 2900 in the 113th Congress. People can go on house.gov and look on, or thomas.gov actually is the best way, and look at H.R. 2900, where you look up a bill in the 113th Congress, the last one, and they can see the things that I put in that bill. I put a whole lot of very innovative issues in it. For instance, I wanted to try to keep the dollars and the decision-making placed in the hands of doctors and patients instead of some government bureaucrat as we have now. That's what we did in my bill. What I did is I gave people a tax credit right off the top of their taxes if they contribute money to a local clinic or hospital that provided care to indigent patients. It'd be all utilized the indigent care, and also gave providers a tax credit for seeing indigent patients. Dr. Price has been very adamant about trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. I call it the Unaffordable Uncaring Act because it is unaffordable. It is uncaring. Rick, it was designed to fail. Mm-hmm. That's what we see happening now. So where are we going to go? And Tom Price is probably one of the best people that I know to lead us into trying to get rid of Obamacare and replace it with policy that makes more sense.
Well, Dr. Brown, you and I have talked about this a number of times. You know how I feel. I'm in total agreement with you. But there are 2 parts of Obamacare that people seem to like, and one is covering pre-existing conditions, and the other is, well, I don't want to call them children. I don't call anybody 26 a child, but people 26 under their parents' health care plans. Do you think that those 2 elements are good elements and should stay in any plan, or they also should be out?
I think Obamacare in its totality needs to be repealed and replaced with something such as my Option Act. I think that the Option Act is much better than any other plan that was introduced. And I hope our listeners will look at it by going on thomas.gov, put in H.R. 2900 in the bill lookup, and they can read it. It's, I don't remember, it's not, it's less than 100 pages. In fact, I think it's much less than 100 pages. I've forgotten how many now. But it's readable and understandable. We've got to, whenever you put requirements, which are mandates or regulations on anything, whether it's on health insurance or whether it's any business. What you do is you put the government in charge of making decisions, first thing, which it shouldn't be under the original intent of the Constitution, and certainly is not in the best interest of patients. Secondly, what it does is it increases the cost of insurance for everybody. Mm-hmm. It's really an income redistribution or money redistribution program. I can take care of that in the Option Act by some of the principles that we put in the Option Act. I don't recall whether Dr. Price's bill keeps those two entities or not, but the thing about pre-existing conditions, it comes into play mostly when a person moves from one insurance company to another, mm-hmm. particularly when they change jobs, because we talk about portability, and what happens is when they buy insurance or the employer purchases insurance for them, then it's a set policy for that business, and when they move to a different job, then they can't take that with them. The Patient Option Act deals with that issue because people buy their own insurance. It allows people to have that portability, so that will help take care of the pre-existing conditions. But we've got to lower the cost of all healthcare goods and services, whether it's insurance, whether it's doctor bills, mm-hmm. amount of money that people spend on medicine in the drugstore, what it costs to have procedures done, operations done. All those things have to come down markedly. Mm-hmm. The more government you put into the healthcare system, the more expensive all those things are. So that's the reason I think the Patient Option Act is the best way to deal with that. And I have been corresponding with some of the Trump people, trying to get them to utilize the Option Act as Trump Care. Mm-hmm. Because I think, it's really the only truly market-based healthcare plan that puts doctors and patients in charge of all their healthcare decisions. But it will make all healthcare cheaper for everybody. It provides good quality care for all Americans, and it's going to save Medicare from going broke. Dr. Price's bill doesn't do that. We've got to deal with Medicare, and hopefully the Trump administration and Dr. Price, once he's Secretary of HHS, will delve into that very sticky problem. But we've got to take care of our seniors. We've got to take care of our sick folks, and the best way to do that is to get the government out of making health care decisions and denying care, denying procedures to people, and let doctors and patients make their decisions. And that's what I tried to do in the Option Act.
Dr. Brown, what about tort reform? When you talk about lowering the cost of medicines and health cares and things like that, I think tort reform would be a major component to help that, wouldn't it?
Well, Rick, that is in Dr. Price's bill. It's not in mine, and the reason I did not include it in mine, you remember, I'm an original intent constitutionalist. If it's not one of the 18 enumerated powers in Article 1, Section 8, I would not promote a policy that's outside those enumerated powers. Mm-hmm. There is no constitutional authority for a federal civil justice system. And actually, there's very little constitutional authority for a criminal justice system. In fact, the Constitution only mentions 3 criminal justice issues: treason, piracy, and counterfeiting of money and securities. Obviously, when the Constitution does authorize what our founding fathers called a postal road system, that's a federal highway system, so we've got to have laws doing that. It does authorize Congress to make laws about immigration, so we have to have immigration laws. But most of the laws, criminal laws, and really all civil laws should be done on the state level. So I agree with you. We've got to put in place tort reform, but it should be done from a constitutional perspective on a state-by-state basis, not in a federal law.
See, Dr. Brown, this is why I love having you on the show. I always learn from you. But I wanted to get your views on some of the other picks that Donald Trump has made to surround himself in his cabinet. What's your thoughts so far on his picks?
Well, the one that I'm most excited about is Senator Jeff Sessions. Donald Trump said that he was going to deal with this horrendous illegal alien problem. They're not immigrants. They're illegal aliens. They're lawbreakers. And he said he's going to secure the border. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm holding my breath to see if Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan will actually allow the president to secure the border. I have serious concerns, actually, that they will. And the reason for that is that a lot of the U.S. Chamber, a lot of the international big businesses, the multinational businesses, don't want us to have a secure border. They want us to have open borders. They want to have a free flow of people. They want the cheap labor. They want illegal aliens to come in this country, and they don't want us to enforce the laws. But until we secure the border and start enforcing the laws on the books, no other law is needed, nor is it warranted, in my opinion. And Jeff Sessions is a law and order guy. His primary issue that he's focused on when he's been in the Senate, and he's a good friend of mine. I've worked with Senator Sessions very closely on this issue because I agree with him, and I have the same attitude that we've got to secure the border, and we've got to deal with these illegal aliens that are in this country, and we need to be a law that's controlled by law, rules by law, not rules by man, as we have seen under this administration, and actually the Bush administrations as well. We've had 4 presidents: George Herbert Walker Bush, Bill Clinton, then George W. Bush, and now Barack Obama, that have refused to obey the laws that were put in place in 1986 under the administration of Ronald Reagan. Mm-hmm. It said we'll secure the border and we'll start enforcing the law. And we've had 4 presidents that have not done so, and their Justice Departments have not done so. So I'm excited about Jeff Sessions being the Attorney General.
Okay, that's the one you're excited about. Which one, is there any there that you may be disappointed on or maybe question a little bit?
Well, I don't really question them. The newest announcement of Elaine Chao, of course, she worked under George W. Bush. She was the Labor Secretary during his administration. She's the only cabinet secretary that stayed throughout the course of the George W. Bush administration. I know this, the liberals hated her, put in a lot of labor types of regulations that Barack Obama immediately undid as soon as he was in the presidency. My guess is that Elaine Child's there to try to help deal with unions. The unions did not embrace the campaign or the presidency of Donald Trump, and I assume Elaine Chao is going to really, as the transportation secretary, help President Trump try to marshal his ideas through the Senate, particularly since she is the wife of the majority leader, Mitch McConnell. That will help, I'm sure. But also, the thing about Elaine Chao is she was very, very tough on the labor unions, and so I think she's a 3-4 actually in that announcement. I don't know a whole lot about these other 2 that were recently announced. Stephen Mnuchin, I'm concerned because he came out of Goldman Sachs. He's a very rich person, and so is Seema Verma. The thing is, particularly Mnuchin, we already saw Goldman Sachs Treasury Secretary on the George W. Bush administration, and it seemed to me as a congressman at the time that that Treasury Secretary tried to protect the Goldman Sachs and the big money folks from Wall Street. I hope Mnuchin will not do that, so we'll see how that goes. So that's just kind of something that I'm going to be looking about to see what how that unfolds. Wilbur Ross, who is also announced, and he's a wealthy guy, and he's going to be the Commerce Secretary. He has promoted getting rid of bad trade deals, and of course that's what Donald Trump talked about. There's been a tremendous outpouring of angst by the liberals and the Democrats against Betsy DeVos as education secretary, but she believes in school choice, and I think she's going to be great. So the only one, just to answer your question directly, the only one I scratch my head over is the UN ambassador that's been nominated, and that's Governor Nikki Haley. Now,
well, Doctor, what I heard, and I'm asking this kind of as a question to you, what I've heard was she was picked for that because the lieutenant governor in South Carolina, I don't remember his name right now, is a very good man, a very staunch conservative. And by putting her in the UN position, by the way, remember that was held by Susan Rice. I don't know how much power is there.
Disaster.
But by doing that, the lieutenant governor can move in as governor of South Carolina, and you probably know him, that this is supposed to be a very good thing.
Well, it may be. And the thing is, Nikki Haley, as far as I know, has absolutely zero foreign policy experience or knowledge. That's the only question that I have. And maybe Donald Trump has those secondary reasons to pick her, to try to move her out of the way, to have a solid conservative in South Carolina. I have met the lieutenant governor. I don't know him as well as I know Governor Haley.
Right.
She's a nice lady, and she's done some good things, but in South Carolina as a governor. But that's the only one to answer your question about. I just don't know what kind of job that you would do as UN ambassador. What I do hope is that we have a Secretary of State that is a very strong Secretary of State. I hope that's John Bolton, frankly.
Oh, I do too. Here in the conservative committee,
personally, he's a great guy. He probably knows more about foreign policy, knows more about foreign governments and the foreign leaders than anybody in this country, in my opinion. I think John Bolton would be the very best pick as the Secretary of State. And then if Mr. Trump does not pick John Bolton, I hope it's Rudy Giuliani, who also has foreign policy experience, even though he was just the mayor of New York.
Yeah. Well, he was more than just a mayor. Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, we are talking with Dr. Paul Brown, who represented the 10th Congressional District of Georgia for 4 terms. Dr. Brown, on the other line, I do have my co-host, J.D. Manier, who'd like to ask you a couple questions. J.D.?
Okay. Hey, J.D.
It's great talking with you again. And
good to talk to you, sir.
I've got the first questions about health care, and then I want to mention another pick by Donald Trump. But last week, a friend of mine, Bill Cummings, who heads up one of the largest health insurance training companies in America, he brought forward a universal health care for life policy concept. It would have cash value, and you get it when you're young. And yes, it has underwriting, but it's portable and would last through your lifetime. Eventually, you could retire with $1 million potentially in that account if you stayed healthy. But wanted to bounce that off of you first.
Well, but JD, what little I know about what you're talking about, and it's very little, I like the idea. We've got to give ownership of healthcare insurance policies to the individual, as well as we have to give the decision-making process to individuals along with their providers, their doctors and hospitals, et cetera, and that would do so. Health savings accounts would also help in that regard. And my bill, as well as Tom Price's bill, both have health savings accounts. Mine's very expanded. It allows people to put any amount of money in a health savings account. But I like that as well. But we've got to lower the cost of health insurance. We've got to lower the cost of medicine in the drugstore. We've got to lower the cost of procedures and doctor bills, hospital bills, et cetera. The best way to do that is to get the government out of dictating, mandating, regulating the healthcare industry and allow market forces to play. JD, I believe very firmly that the best way to ensure the best quality, quantity, and cost of all goods and services, including healthcare goods and services, is a free, open marketplace where the market pressures come to bear so that it ensures the best quality, quantity, and cost of all those goods and services. And anytime you put taxes or regulations on any product, on any service, what it does is drives up the cost, it lowers the availability and quality, plus it makes it less available to people. So that's what we see in the healthcare industry particularly. And so I'm open to anything, and actually that kind of program is certainly very viable under the Option Act that I introduced, H.R. 2900 in the 113th Congress. And so people can make any of those kind of decisions that they want to, and the insurance companies are going to have to compete. Right now, the insurance companies, tantamount, have a monopoly in each state. Now, I haven't checked the prices recently, but it used to be, when I last checked, that a person could buy the same Blue Cross Blue Shield policy in Ohio cheaper than they could buy it in Georgia. So why can't we buy health insurance across state lines and open up the marketplace? Well, Tom Price's bill does that. My bill does that. I think every Republican bill allows that. And let me teach Rick and you a little something if you don't already know. I think Rick already knows, and you probably do too, JD, because I've said this on this program before. The Commerce Clause, in its original intent, was so that when our founding fathers said to regulate commerce, they meant to make it regular, to make it occur. And actually, the Commerce Clause is a state, is one of those things mentioned in Article 10 as being something that's prohibited from the states. What they wanted was a free flow of commerce amongst the states. We don't have that in health insurance today. We've got to open that up. Our founding fathers never, ever, ever intended for the federal government to control commerce like we look at regulate being today. We've got to get the regulatory burden off the patients as well as the insurers, and let the insurance companies create things such as health care for life. And I'm all for that.
Dr. Brown, we've got to wrap up in about a minute, but is there any way for our audience to keep track of what you're doing or writing?
Well, I'm Rick, right now I'm trying to figure out what the Lord wants me to do. My calling all along has come from a question God asked in Psalm 11:3, and the question is, if the foundations be destroyed, what are the righteous to do? Even Christian conservative Republicans in Washington do not stand by the Constitution as our founding fathers meant for it to be. And as you know, I'm a Marine. I believe I believe in limited government. I believe in the enumerated powers. And I'm hoping and praying that God's going to open a door for me to get back in the fight to reestablish those foundational principles that made America great. And those principles are based on the enumerated powers as our founding fathers intended them to be. They never intended the Constitution to be a living and breathing document. They didn't intend for it to be changeable. It's a genius document. And we've got to go back to those foundational principles of individual liberty and responsibility, of a vibrant free enterprise system, unencumbered by government taxes and regulations. And I've got to stay in that fight somehow. So I'm just hoping and praying God's going to open up a door for me to do so.
Well, Dr. Brown, we're hoping and praying for you also. We always love having you on. You know that, but we got to run. Take care. God bless, and we'll talk with you real soon.
Thanks.
JD, got to run, got to go. Take care. God bless. We'll talk to you tomorrow on the radio.